Good evening, everyone. Coming up on Capitol tonight, the fallout continues following that shooting at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday. What we know about the suspect and the motivations behind that shooting coming up. Plus, two big developments in North Carolina politics as two state lawmakers switch party affiliations. What that could mean for the General Assembly. We'll be joined by a political analyst we know well on this program. That's all coming up on Capitol tonight, and it starts right now. And good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on Capitol tonight. I'm Reuben Jones reporting this evening from the White House, where American and British flags line the streets of Washington as this city welcomes King Charles III. A lot of eyes will be on that this week, but the bigger focus here tonight is the fallout from that shooting at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday evening. Today, the suspect in that shooting was arraigned in court, and we are beginning to learn more information behind the potential motivations of that suspect on Saturday, as well as concerns about whether that event was fully secure enough. Our Evan Koslas kicks us off this evening.
Cole Thomas Allen, a 31-year-old from Torrance, California, is the one that prosecutors say is responsible for doing this, unveiling 3 charges against him. 2 federal gun charges, and then also 1 charge for the attempted assassination of the president, which carries a life sentence. Also saying that further charges could be on the way. Here's what prosecutors say happened. They say that Allen traveled by train across the country, coming from California to Washington, D.C., carrying multiple weapons, including a shotgun and multiple knives, that he then checked into the Washington Hilton on Friday. That's one day before the event on Saturday. It was around 8:35 that he then tried to pass the security checkpoint, and shots were fired. Prosecutors saying at least 5 shots were fired, although he was not hit. 1 officer was shot but had a bulletproof vest and is actually going to be okay, which is certainly good news there. Ultimately, Allen was captured by law enforcement before anything could happen inside that ballroom. The Department of Justice saying that the security held up. Take a listen.
This man was a floor above the ballroom with hundreds of federal agents between him and the President of the United States. Law enforcement did not fail.
Now, a big focus is going to be on motives, and there is a lot of attention to the manifesto. Prosecutors say that they're looking at this. It was something that Allen allegedly sent to his family shortly before this event, in which he outlined his plans to target the President of the United States, members of his cabinet, quote, highest to lowest. This is something that administration officials have said is a sign that the temperature needs to be lowered. In fact, the press secretary Caroline Leavitt basically saying that there has been a, quote, systemic demonization of the president. So she's obviously being critical of people that have been negative towards the president in that case. Now, as for Allen, he did not enter a plea inside of the federal courthouse. He's set to be back in court on Thursday for a detention hearing. We're near the federal courthouse. I'm Evan Kosloff for Spectrum News.
Evan, thank you so much. And there are concerns and questions about whether Saturday's event was as safe and secure as it should have been. I want to dive more into that. I was joined earlier on the program, earlier today, by former Secret Service agent Charles Marino. Well, Charles, thanks for making time. We appreciate it. Let's start. I mean, I know you spent nearly 2 decades in the Secret Service. Based on what you have seen so far regarding this incident, what do you make of the Secret Service's response about what happened?
Well, there's no question that the American people should have confidence in the dedication of the men and women of the Secret Service. That was on full display on Saturday night, and I think is unimpeachable. I think the focus is going to be on the protocols of the Secret Service and the operational plans that were implemented. And the question is this, which I'm sure the Secret Service, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and the White House are asking right now, are those protocols evolving? Are they dynamic to meet the challenges in today's threat environment, both the threats we're facing as a country and more specifically the threats that the president and others in his administration are facing. Once those are answered, then we will know exactly what changes need to take place.
So, based on what we have seen, I want to kind of just walk through a few of the measures that were in place because I was at that dinner. And for my memory, it's been pretty similar in terms of what you see as an attendee. You go into the hotel and basically flash your ticket, and then you are able to access all of these pre-parties. And at these pre-parties, these are filled rooms with people that include cabinet secretaries. I wonder if that is of concern to you that there are not additional security measures for that, and then touch on the fact that yes, you have to go through metal detectors before you get to the ballroom, but they're not that far away from where the ballroom is located.
Well, I'll say this. You brought up the cabinet secretaries. Obviously, we know that this was a potential attack, not just against the president and the vice president, but also the continuity of government, which is very important here based on the list of attendees. You had leadership there from Congress that fell in the line of succession. Cabinet secretaries, same holds true for them. And then you had the president and vice president in the same location. So what's the fix here? Well, the Secretary of Homeland Security plays a big role in this because based on the importance of that continuity of government, a site like the White House Correspondents' Dinner could have very easily been designated as a national special security event, no different than what we see at the inauguration or the State of the Union, or even what we're going to see this summer with the World Cup. So if an NSSE designation is important enough to give to the World Cup because of the national significance, then isn't it of national significance that we protect these venues the same way when the president attends these large venues? And I think the answer to the question is yes. It leaves the Secret Service in charge of the security planning. It brings forth a whole of government approach to the security plan where resources are unlimited. And it also allows a more aggressive posture in where those perimeters begin and end. To your point, it would engulf all of the events taking place within this hotel location. And yes, set some restrictive requirements in place for those that are staying in the hotel, like background checks and room searches.
Good insight. And when you talk about just how many people are in that one room, as you mentioned, you have not only the president, but you have the cabinet secretaries, the Speaker of the House, the vice president. I mean, it's a similar situation at the State of the Union, but it is the Capitol building, so it's different. Do you think in today's age, where there are so many threats of violence, political violence as well, that an event like this can occur at a third-party location? Can it happen with the new measures, with the measures you put in place, or is there still quite a bit of risk in today's world?
Well, there's always an element of risk, unfortunately, but what I can tell you is the National Special Security Event structure under the direction of the Secret Service has been very successful. And yes, it has occurred at non-governmental locations over the years. So you just have to look at the United Nations General Assembly, for example, where that NSSE structure follows outside of the United Nations General Assembly headquarters, but also to area hotels where high-level protectees are attending external meetings. So the system works when it's put in place and used properly. And I think because it's an existing tool in the toolbox, why would we not implement that quickly? The Secretary of Homeland Security, for example, could sign a piece of paper today. And if the president says, I want the next White House Correspondents' Dinner to occur 30 days from now at the Hilton, then that can be treated as an NSSE just based on the secretary's signature.
Well, that was going to be my last question, and I apologize. We only have about 15 seconds, but the president has said he wants this event to occur. First of all, it's not his decision. It's up to the White House Correspondents Association, but he wants it to occur within about 30 days. From a safety standpoint, do you think that is a smart decision?
I think it's achievable. if we follow the outline that I just put forth. It's in existence. All the policies and plans already exist. And again, it just takes action from the secretary.
And of course, the other challenges there are logistics and whether people that were there will feel comfortable with an event so soon. We'll wait and see. Charles Meador, really good insight. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Reuben.
All right, our thanks again to Charles for joining us this evening. Coming up after the break, we return to North Carolina, where there are a lot of questions about what two-party affiliation changes by North Carolina lawmakers could mean for the General Assembly. We'll be joined by political professor Chris Cooper right after the break. Capitol Tonight from the White House. We'll return. Thanks for staying with us here on Capitol Tonight. I'm Reuben Jones outside the White House this evening. We're going to turn to some big developments in North Carolina politics, where two North Carolina state representatives have announced they are intend to leave the Democratic Party. State Representatives Nassif Majid and Carla Cunningham have both announced plans to change from Democrat to unaffiliated or independent. Both are from Mecklenburg County, and they lost their primaries to Democratic challengers back in March. I spoke with Western Carolina politics professor Chris Cooper earlier today about the implications of what those changes could mean for the General Assembly. So Chris, in many ways this should not be a surprise. I mean, both of these state representatives lost their Democratic primary earlier this year, but what do you make of this announcement?
Yeah, it's really not a surprise. In some ways, a surprise would be if they did hang with their party. I mean, they were kicked out of their own party, essentially, right? They lost their primaries. Why? Because they tended to fight against their own party. So it makes some sense to me that they would go unaffiliated. To me, really, the only question was whether they would switch to unaffiliated or go full, right? And just switch all the way to Republican. So, yeah, really not much left to lose for either one. Makes a lot of sense, actually.
So, of course, the big question now is the significance of what this will mean for the General Assembly and their voting. House Democratic leader Robert Reeves released a statement saying, during their years in public office, Representatives Majid and Cunningham have voted on bills according to their values, and I expect they will continue to do so. I value their friendship and look forward to continuing to serve with them. He's not wanting to really upset the waters, it would appear.
No, look, I mean, he gave the exact statement that he should have given, right? There's no need to burn these bridges further. They lost their primary. They clearly had significant opposition from the establishment part of the Democratic Party. So, yeah, I think that the deed's already been done. To some degree, I think the Democrats had to expect, again, that this kind of thing was going to happen, right? They had well-funded attacks on both of them. I think the only question really at this point is whether we're going to see a third Democratic lawmaker switch to unaffiliated.
I mean, are there votes that you would be watching to see in the coming months where this could be influential? Obviously, Republicans hold a solid majority, but when you talk about, potential for veto and overturning that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all about veto overrides. There are 6 veto overrides that could be taken up. I think it's very possible that even if they had formally stuck with the Democratic Party, that they still might have gone against the governor. I think we need to watch the DEI bills, of course. We also need to watch the one about weapons and when folks are allowed to carry weapons. I think that one is very like sort of this permitless carry idea. I think that is the one that I think most folks are the most unclear about exactly where these two now unaffiliateds who will likely caucus with the Democrats will go.
Chris, would you say these Democrats represent what some people sometimes describe as an older, more moderate Democrat of North Carolina, or are these Democrats that just seem to be sort of out of line with the Democratic Party in North Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both, right? I think to some degree they are more conservative Democrats. What makes them interesting, obviously, is they are Democrats and they're also people of color. And so the people of color make up a very large proportion of the Democratic voting bloc, not just in Mecklenburg County, but in the state as a whole. So I think that's what makes this one look a little different. I've sort of gone back recently and looked at all the party switchers we've had in North Carolina in the General Assembly. They're the only ones I can find who actually switch parties after losing their primary. Everybody else who switched parties, the other 6 folks, they did it just kind of in the middle of their term, more like what Tricia Cotham did.
I mean, it would seem that there are more Democrats flipping to either unaffiliated or flipping to Republican, as you mentioned for Tricia Cotham's instance there. What should we read into that, anything, in terms of we're not necessarily seeing as many Republicans flip to Democrat?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We don't see, believe the last Republican to switch to Democrat in North Carolina General Assembly was Michael Decker. And that, of course, was later caught up in a bribery scandal where you'd taken some money in an IHOP bathroom in Salisbury to get that switch. So it's not normal at all to see folks go from Republican to Democrat. So I think there's a couple of things we can read in. One is the changing nature of the South, the changing nature of North Carolina, the changing nature of the Democratic Party. But I think in this case, we can also see this is what happens when the Democratic Party goes after you, right? You just have nothing left to lose. And so you're willing to make that party switch. So I don't know that this is indicative of a much larger trend. I think it's really about the specifics of these two individuals and their relationship with the Democratic Party, which is rocky at best.
Just about 30 seconds left, but as we look to November, obviously a lot of attention is on whether Democrats can hold seats in Congress and pick up more seats. When you look at the General Assembly, how much potential is there for Democrats to make serious inroads in the General Assembly?
More in the House than in the Senate, right? The Senate districts are sort of drawn in a way, and folks can argue about why that is, but they really benefit the Republican Party. It's going to be tough for the Democrats to break too many Senate seats. In the House, I don't think the Democrats are going to take the majority by any stretch, but I do think they are going to pick up some seats.
Chris Cooper, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, our thanks to Chris for that. Coming up after the break, there has been an interesting feud playing out between Pope Leo and President Donald Trump, and it gets into this question of the role of religion and politics. When we come back, we will take a deeper dive into that. Spectrum News, Capital Tonight. We'll be back. Thanks for staying with us here on Capitol Tonight. I'm Reuben Jones at the White House this evening. President Donald Trump's pick to lead the Federal Reserve is one step closer to getting confirmed. Republican Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, you'll remember, had vowed to withhold his vote to confirm Kevin Warsh until the Department of Justice dropped its investigation of current Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Well, the Justice Department did that, or says it will do that, on Friday, meaning Tillis is now ready to support Warsh. In a post over the weekend, Tillis said, in part, "I look forward to supporting Kevin Warsh. He is an outstanding nominee. It is time for the Federal Reserve to move beyond this distraction and return its full attention to its mission." In other news, a recent clash or feud between President Donald Trump and Pope Leo is raising questions about the bridge or divide, or questions about religion and politics. Earlier this month, Pope Leo made a statement about his opinion on the war in Iran, saying, "Enough of the display of power, enough of war." President Trump then made a following statement on Truth Social, saying the Pope is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. Our Kennedy Chase spoke with people who study religion in different ways to hear what they have to say about this conflict and its potential impact on politics and congregations.
That first of all supplications, prayers, intersections.
The Bible tells us again to love one another, and to treat our neighbor as we want to treat ourselves.
As church elder Christopher Lewis shares with me his personal opinion on the remembrance of the gospel.
Pray for them that have authority over us.
He says no matter what side you're on politically, religion should always remain neutral.
I don't go to the right or to the left, but we try to stay neutral in that we're bringing people together.
Since President Donald Trump made comments opposing Pope Leo's opinion on the Iran war, some faith leaders have been vocal about where and when religion should participate when it comes to political issues. Lewis says since the beginning of American history, religion was meant to support everyone.
We don't try to push down one race, one creed, or one religion in the United States, because that's not how our forefathers meant it to be. We were meant to share. We were meant to prosper together.
Religion and politics have been intertwined all over the world since the beginning of time.
Religion is definitely related to politics in human history.
That's why UNC Chapel Hill religious studies professor Eviatar Marienberg says this type of clash between Pope Leo and President Trump is nothing new.
People might be surprised by the fact that political leaders and popes have clashes. This is like the entire history is like that. This is something totally normal when you look about the long term. So I was not surprised by this.
He says, if anything, public conflict like this promotes dialogue and sometimes expresses shared concerns.
Pope Leo has very little to lose from this. I think he just expressed his opinion. And again, his opinion also, there is really nothing unusual about it. I think many people worldwide would agree with him, including many people in this country. So he did not say anything unusual, anything that are particularly Catholic.
And that dialogue is something Lewis says he encourages in his church congregation.
I don't let my emotions dictate to me how I feel towards you, but I'll let you talk. I talk, and we come together and try to agree.
Kennedy, thank you. It was a chaotic weekend here in the nation's capital following that shooting at the White House Correspondents Association. Fallout will continue on that this week and for many weeks to come. That, as an international visit, will also dominate headlines here in the nation's capital, with King Charles III visiting Washington. We'll make sure to keep you updated on all of it. That is going to do it for us here on Capitol Tonight. I'm Reuben Jones reporting from the White House. I'll see you tomorrow.